Welcome. I'm Tom Hambright. I work in the back room here at the library. And so I was asked to introduce David. David and I, and a couple other people here, are on the board of directors of the Key West Maritime Historical Society, which is one that promotes maritime history. It's nonprofit, and we own no real estate. So we get donations, as David has kindly donated to us in the past, some watercolors he done of some of the same ships here, and they're on display in the main courtroom in the Monroe County Courthouse. So David was building these dioramas and wanted somewhere to we had to have somewhere to show them, and then we finally ended up, this is probably the best place because it's easily accessible. A lot of people come and go here. So that's how we ended up here. But anyway, David is a renowned marine artist and model builder. He was trained in arts in his native Texas, and I know he started building models there because when we were at his house recently, he showed us a model of a ship in a bottle that he built as a youngster that he still has with him. Yeah, that's a difficult model building when you do it in there. But David is renowned. His paintings are in collections in Key West and around the world, besides the ones here. But model building is an extra dimension when you go into the artistry because you've got to know something about the ship, the construction, and the history, which David will cover. But, and he's going to do all this, so I'll quit talking. But one thing I did find today when I was looking at his website, that he is an admiral in the Navy of Texas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted all of you came out tonight to see the new models that I've made. I've loved building models ever since I can remember as a little boy. My first job was mowing yards, and I would save the money, and when I got enough, I'd go and buy a model ship and spend hours putting it together. And that's the way I really learned a lot about ships. I grew up in a landlocked little town in central Texas. There wasn't much water around except for rivers and stock tanks. So I always made my ships float. I'd ballast them and I'd float them in the stock tanks and, you know, have battles and sink them and everything. I really, really loved it. So when I first came to Key West in the 70s, I was fascinated to learn that Key West had such a colorful maritime history. And I eventually came here in my sailboat and went into the charter business. And on days when the weather was bad and no one wanted to go sailing, I would come to the library. And at the time, the Florida room was over here, I think on this side of the library, and Sylvia Knight was the lady that ran it. You knew Sylvia, I'm sure. Nice lady. So I'd go in, and she would bring out these thick file folders of photographs of Key West Harbor back to the 1850s. And there were all these wonderful ships, and I learned so much about all these colorful ships that had been coming to Key West for many years. So back to the charter business, my engine starter had gone out, and it was going to cost $600 to fix it, and I didn't have the $600. So I'd seen a picture in the collection of the side wheeler City of Key West about 1900, and I love those kind of side wheel vessels. You know, their style. They all had a particular style, and they looked very similar. And this one had been built in 1865, and this photo was done in 1900. So that was an old wooden boat, and she looked a little decrepit sitting at the dock. But I found out that Flagler used her to carry people to Key West from his hotel, the Royal Palm, at the mouth of the Miami River, and she would make these trips overnight to Key West and carry the passengers down. She did that for 3 or 4 years, and Flagler had chartered her. So I thought this was really fascinating. So the boat's tied up at the dock. I went and bought some watercolor board, and I had some watercolors that I brought with me from Texas. and I laid it up on the table, and I sketched it out, and I painted it, and I thought, that looks pretty good. So I framed it, and I took it over to my friends who had the Perkins & Son ship chandlery, with the thought that they could maybe put it in the window and try to sell it for me. Well, they liked it so much, they bought it immediately. And I thought, this is a hell of a lot easier than the charter business. So that kind of got me started. You know, when I did move ashore, then I had all these ideas in my mind, photographs that I've seen of ships in the collection here at the library. And I drew on these and started painting. And I started putting, after I moved ashore, I got an apartment, and I set up my workplace, and I started painting and framing, and I put them in the ship chandlery, and they started selling. They were selling. So I'd have shows, and they would sell. And the last show I had before Perkins & Son closed, I sold all the paintings in the show that night. And that was so encouraging. And it also exposed me to a lot of other people that hired me to do commercial art, you know, guidebooks and posters and T-shirt designs. And I'm reminiscent of once a gallery in St. Louis wrote Winslow Homer and asked him to send some paintings to the gallery so that they could sell. And he wrote him back and said, no, I don't have anything I can send you, but I'll paint anything for money. So I use that a lot. But I've painted a lot of ships, and I've done a lot of research on each one of them. I write, this is before the internet too, but I write the different museums, the Mariners Museum, the Mystic Seaport, the Peabody in Gloucester, and all the major maritime museums in the country. And the Maritime Museum has a huge research library, so they would send me all this information, descriptions of the ship, everything that they could find. So I had all this information on each ship, and that's where I did my paintings. So about 2 years ago, my dad passed away, and he left me a little money. And I knew I had the time now where I could do something I really wanted. So I started building. The first one I built was a smaller model of the clipper ship Stephen R. Mallory, and I gave it to the AIDS group for their annual auction, you know, and it sold well, but it didn't do as well as I wanted it to, of course. But it sold, and then I thought, well, you know what, maybe I should do more of these. So I started. This was the first one I did, actually, in this collection, and it made them larger. And I use this framing company in Clearwater called Florida Frames, and they make all the frames and do the plexiglass, send them to me. I put them together and make the boxes out of foam core, and I build the models mostly out of watercolor paper. It's the heavy watercolor paper that I use for my paintings. It's like 150-pound rag paper. And the paper has been made in France at a company called D'Arches since 1492. So it's really something. But it works, it's like when you get it wet, you can almost sculpt it like clay. It's so wonderful to work with. And I use, you know, little dowel pins and then thread, lots of thread, of course. But they just sort of came together. And then when I got it built, I found my friend, a friend of mine took me over to Home Depot and showed me these LED lights that are with these wonderful strips of even lighting that just stick on. You just pull the sticker off and they stick on. So it's wonderful, and they're on dimmers too. You can control the, you know, let's see, yeah, it's like so. See? So I really liked it, and I've done 5 so far. And I have lots of others I want to do. I'm working on the Williamsburg, USS Williamsburg now, which was Harry Truman's yacht. They used to be tied up here at the old Navy Administration Building. And so I'm building that, and then I have many others in mind. And I hope to do this as long as I can see and work my fingers. And it's like my second childhood. Thank you all so much. And the other paintings are over on the wall between the the windows over there on that side. So please have a look at those, and I'll walk around and answer any questions you might have. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing. I have an envelope here for Corey Malcolm and for Tom. This is just a letter saying that I've given them to the library and to the Maritime Historical Society in order to tell the colorful history, maritime history of Key West.
We're honored. Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you, sir. And thanks Sylvia Knight.
you.